Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carruth Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2007 religious horror film titled The Reaping. Now, The Reaping runs for 99 minutes long. It is directed by Stephen Hopkins. It is produced by Richard Mirisch, Herb Gaines, Susan Downey, Joel Silver, and Robert Zemeckis. And the script was written by Chad and Carrie Hayes. The score was done by John Frizzle. The cinematography was done by Peter Levy. The editing was done by Kobe Parker Jr. and Todd Silverman. And the stars of the movie are Hilary Swank, AnnaSophia Robb, Idris Elba. Let's see, who else is there? David Morrisey. And Stephen Ray. Those are like the principal characters that were in this. So what did I think of this movie? Well, after much consideration, I guess I could clearly understand why The Reaping stalled in its initial release. Prior to the release, the trailers came out about a year ago, before Warner Brothers decided to reluctantly give this film the green light just to see how the viewers will respond to it. Even though the film went through some major editing makeovers, the smarter investment would have been better if it would have been just left on the cutting room floor. The first hour seemed to be intriguing with some pretty interesting ideas and unique characters. But by the next hour on, the story starts to become choppy and sloppy, and it leads to a lot of confusion ad nauseum. And once the film ends, the characters, the viewers, and the crew don't know what the hell just happened here. The film is virtually undecipherable, and if you try to get an understanding of what transpired here, you're just practically wasting your time. So, for what it's worth, the plot goes a little something like this. Hilary Swank stars as Professor Catherine Winter, an iconoclastic LCU, Louisiana State University instructor specializing in revealing truths about secrets and myths and dismiss them easily as pure hyperbole. In other words, she used to be at one time a missionary. Of course, she had a husband and a daughter, and they died due to some kind of ritual killing in the Sudan. And at one time, like I said, she was at one time a Christian missionary. But once her husband and her daughter had died while on assignment in Sudan, she decided that there is no such things as miracles, there's no such things as myths, and everything, every relic, every sacred belief, every epiphany can be logically explained through the facets of science. Yes, this movie definitely has that science versus religion fiasco going on, and it runs quite amok throughout this whole movie. And of course, the reason for her dismissal stems from a continual episodic array of haunting flashbacks to her trip to Sudan, which ended up becoming a trip to hell because of the loss of her loved ones. A representative in the town of Haven, Louisiana, who goes by the name of Doug, played by David Morrisey, um, well, she gets a call from a former friend of hers was a priest who also believes that some kind of semi-apocalyptic force is driving the town berserk. But there's more to just her being assigned to go to this small bayou town of Haven, Louisiana. Okay, Doug shows Catherine that the river in the area has morphed into like a bloodish red, in which the residents have epiphanies that Old Testament plagues have become bestowed upon them. So Dr. Winter and her colleague Ben, played by Idris Elba, they travel to a haven where they notice bizarre events are happening in the town. Maybe there could be some logical explanation as to why these things are happening. Maybe there's some kind of scientific reason why the river is saturated with blood or is just a bloody red. Of course, as time goes on, more and more passages from the Old Testament, the 10 plagues, come upon the flying dead frogs, the flies, the locusts, um, and also the inevitable death of the second born. All of these plagues just come into full effect in this movie. And this had potential to have some pretty decent storytelling, but in the end, it just was a big, muddled mess. So we have frogs falling from the heavens, locusts are flying all over, cows being mutilated, and there is also a belief of a mysterious little girl in a red dress seems to be running around. I believe her name is Lauren McConnell, and she is played by AnnaSophia Robb. And the residents in the town believe that she is the devil's daughter, the spawn of Satan. Oh, how cliche. Wearing a red dress must mean she's the devil, or the spawn of Satan. How original. But it seems like this little girl is always constantly running away. We never really hear her talk or anything. She always seems to look on. She sees Dr. Winter, and she's just trying to run away. But the question is, from who? And the question lies in, is she the one behind all these weird chain of events that's happening in this small Louisiana town? Could Dr. Winter find some kind of scientific explanation to debunk these religious myths? Is there any kind of proof or whatnot that could explain these things? In the end, she left me confused. She left the audience confused. I mean, if they're going to use religious symbolism in this movie, it's gotta make sense. In the end, nothing made sense. Nothing transpired. This movie was really, really uninspiring, to say the least. And then, of course, we have poor Stephen Ray wearing a caul, and he tries to garner some and Stephen Ray, he's this priest, and he's just looking for some screen time for himself. He tries to phone Catherine to alert her of the dangers lurking around before eventually suffering his own fate. But other than that, his role really lacks anything proved significant. In fact, that's all he does in this scene. He calls Catherine, he tells her that, the end is near, and that's it. He practically, literally phones in his performance. Pretty clever, huh? So the Reaping lacks in anything exceptional in referring to it as a motion picture. There's absolutely nothing logical or provocative about it, and it just loosely follows its own agenda to make it look and feel smart, which is anything but. And the final twist is what covers everything that I mentioned so far. The ending is just padded on just to generate the viewers something to widen their mouths in horror. All of it made me do is walk out of the theater in utter disgust. And in the end, I felt very, very cheated by the ending. It was just a lackluster scapegoat ending just to, I don't know, maybe they were running out of film time or something like that. Or maybe there was some kind of expiry date as to just to film in, so they decided to pad something on just to end it. Okay, if you want me to give a spoiler alert, I'll give a spoiler alert. Alright, from what I gather, Catherine eventually does make some startling discoveries. In the town of Haven, pretty much all of the residents seem to be either only childs or have their second born younger sibling killed. Okay, if you recall from the beginning, um, inside the bloody red river, there lied a dead boy. And of course, the folks are still seeing that the person responsible for the death of the boy was the mysterious Lauren McConnell. Now, this Lauren McConnell, as you all know, she's got these amazing superpowers. Was it from Satan? Or is there something more logical that could be further extrapolated? Okay, we also discover that, half most of the residents in town, like I said, are either only childs or their younger siblings have passed on because of some kind of protocol in the town in order for the town to reserve or to prosper. The second child must be killed. Oh boy, guess what? I'm a second born child. You may as well put me to the grave. Okay. Well, let's see here. I did arbitrarily jot down the plagues, feeling that it might be something of importance. In reality, it just proved unnecessary, and it winds down to be more about a satanic cult than middle-high stories from the Old Testament involving plagues. So while this is happening, Catherine educates us all that the plagues from the Exodus chapters are nothing more than apocalyptic idiocy that manifests in heaven. And I will say that the scenes involving the only cool scenes, the only cool plague scenes were the locusts. I mean, there were like thousands of them. Those were like the only really cool scenes in this movie. The flying frogs, what? There were only about like, what, 10, 20 of them? There were probably just a bunch of plastic frogs. The Red River looks like fruit punch. Looks like I could just, take a straw and just sip through it. And the mutilated cows were pretty unconvincing. Ugh. This movie sucked. If this was trying to scare me, I mean, one minute we're talking about the 10 plagues, and then all of a sudden it turns out that this whole town of Haven is like under some satanic force, and they're trying to look for somebody to lay the blame on. They're just blaming the mysterious little girl in red. It just boggles the mind. Like, what the fuck am I seeing here? So therefore, therefore, when I left the theaters, I didn't stick around for the end credits. So eventually, the entire town is virtually destroyed, and it turns out that that Doug, who invited Catherine to Haven, I should say, turns out that he was responsible for the death of her assistant, and that him, as well as the other town folk, were practically putting the blame on somebody, so they had to blame Lauren. Even her own mother, too, was also seemed to be somewhat cryptic in nature. I mean, who could forget the scene where Catherine walks into Lauren's house, and Mrs. McConnell, Lauren's mother, was like, she comes up to her and she says, are you trying to kill my daughter? And Catherine responds with a weird look on her face in confusion, like, no. And then her mother mysteriously responds with, why not? Why not? What kind of town are they in? I mean, that's weird. It's weird, it's what it is. So then, the whole town eventually gets destroyed. Every residence perishes. There's this big inferno. And the only two survivors are Catherine and Lauren. And eventually they drive away. I guess Catherine has now become her new, I guess, adoptive mother or new legal guardian. And, Catherine says, it's okay, honey. It's just you and me now. What about the baby? What baby? The baby in your stomach. So then this gives us the indication that she is now pregnant. And you know what that means. That's right. Sequel mania in the works. There's going to be a Reaping 2. That's right, folks. You're going to have yourselves a sequel to The Reaping. Maybe it might be better than the first installment. Who knows? I'll give it a chance. I mean, I'm not going to come in with high expectations, though. No siree. Alright, I'm doing a little nitpicking, so let me talk about the performances, shall we? Two-time Oscar-winning actress Hilary Swank Yes, her two-time Oscar wins does her no justice here. But I will give her the credit where credit is due. She does try hard to show that she really cares about the script and the story. However, her two Oscars certainly have no meaning to what film she's in. She's just completely wasted of her potential. It could have easily been given to someone of less significance than her. Come on, she's an Oscar-winning actress. She doesn't need to be in garbage movies like this. David Morrisey is trying to get us to forget about the awful performance he's had in that yucky movie Basic Instinct 2. Nice try, David. But your forgiveness is still unaccepted. Idris Elba, while he does everything he can as as Catherine's assistant, and for what he wasn't too bad, but he just didn't really light up, and his role was still kind of vanilla. AnnaSophia Robb, she adds mystery to her character, and she's probably like the second best performance in this movie. But she's too cute to be the spawn of Satan, and she's not scary enough. I was hoping maybe a Adrian Mercado look-alike. Give her some glowing red eyes. That would have been confused. That would have been maybe a little intimidating. She looks like the type of person you just wanna bring home and raise. But I mean, she's too cute to be scary. That's basically what I'm saying. She also appears younger than her role in Bridge to Terabithia. Now, I've seen AnnaSophia Robb star in other great movies. I mean, she was really excellent in her performance as Bethany Hamilton in the movie Soul Surfer. She was phenomenal. And I know she's young, she's got a lot of potential, and I can see it in her. She did turn in a pretty good performance. She did kind of add this mystery as to what, and we all kind of was somewhat feeling that maybe she was the evil doer in the town, and then we get this climax, this surprise twist that it wasn't her that was the evil, it was the town that was evil, and they just needed somebody to lay the blame on. Sure, she's got these special powers, but she just did not convince. That's all I'm saying. And as for Stephen Ray, he could have been cut from this movie and no one would have gave a damn. So director Stephen Hopkins, he strives to make B movies with the occasional break out of his bubble. But this movie will never put him at the front of the class though. It's complicated as to what's the red herring to this movie. I suppose the direction, the script, and the editing are pretty much all to blame. Listen, I was never really a huge aficionado of the movie The Omen, but through every religious stories focusing on apocalyptic wars, I'm pretty much convinced that The Omen is really not all as bad as I thought. So, in the end, I think this movie will likely collect dust. And for that, I give The Reaping, out of a scale of 10, I give it a 5. Maybe I give some points for the awesome scene involving the locusts. Yeah, okay, the Red River and the dead boy in the river did add some mystery and some intrigue, and there was some pretty interesting things at the beginning, but there were a lot of flaws in this movie that was just so overwhelming, and in the end, you just end up becoming confused, and I think that the ending was very, very awkwardly set up. It was too rushed, and it was too much of a scapegoat for it to be anything compelling. And in the end, I kind of felt badly cheated. So that's why this movie gets a 5. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. Just remember, be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another review. So until next time, this is Eric Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.